The Palma Scholars program was envisioned as a force within the school that could allow us an opportunity to take risks, to try new things. One of the ways the program does that is through the students that we draw in, new leaders, really engaging, interesting, dynamic young people. The other centerpiece of the program is the Palma Seminar, a course that all Palma Scholars take that is also open to all students in the upper school. It's required to be interdisciplinary, whereas other classes at the school generally fall within a single discipline, like history or English.
I was able to combine art, research, and writing all into one big project.
And allowing students to take more control over their education by customizing the kinds of work they're doing, the kinds of projects they pursue. They have an opportunity to identify passions and use the course material as a focal point for engaging and developing those skills or other passions.
So I thought this was like a really valuable opportunity to kind of take what you learned and then actually apply it in the real world. We all looked at an issue that we wanted to make a difference in the Portland area, and I decided to focus on food waste, which is something I'm really passionate about. So I started going to the farmers market and collecting imperfect produce that I then donated to the Portland Rescue Mission to feed homeless people.
The students collaborated on small group projects in which the primary criterion was that they needed to make a positive impact on the world somewhere outside of Catlin, Gabel.
My project was a refugee youth integration program called Thrive for local refugee youth from the shelter, and just be able to get them to integrate within our community and interact with other community members their age.
We thought, okay, how could we bring about some sort of social change in about 3 months? And we had to do research and reach out to different groups, but in the end, we found this reading group within this prison called Liberation Literacy, and we ended up having this book drive here at Catlin. It was super meaningful, and it was such a cool way to end the class by learning about how to make change and then actually feeling like you did make change.
We had literature as one of the central pieces. The literature was essentially an outline for the rest of the class.
We read Crime and Punishment by Dostoevsky, and then The Trial by Kafka. And then we discussed real world issues with the incarcerated population in America and police brutality and a whole lot of other issues that go along with that.
One of the challenges with thinking about the subject of revolutionaries, which was last year's seminar, there are so many different kinds of movements, but they're really quite different.
So I was in a group with someone who had Napoleon and Stalin, I think, both political revolutionaries. We talked about the similar traits those characters had, the similar upbringings, the things that were different about them, and then we shared in a bigger group. And again, it was interesting to see how the people in the sports group versus the people in the political group versus the people in the activist group all had some very similar things and then some things that were vastly different.
But in this class, you get to explore all the other ways to look at something. And overall, I think that leads to a more three-dimensional understanding.
So the individual assessment plan, the IAP, is sort of a plan that the student gets to set for themselves as a list of goals or benchmarks they want to hit throughout the year. So some of my goals were participation, writing, being able to work in a group and try to take more of a leadership position.
Last year, my individual assessment plan was just to do 3 podcasts. My first podcast was about shared attributes of revolutionary figures throughout history. My second podcast was more about the feminist movement. And then finally, I talked about 3 homeless advocates in Portland.
So it's giving the students control over their learning and then working with them so that they can see their improvement and growth over the course of the year. It is a dynamic place in which we are collectively constructing the learning that occurs. It's not me delivering it.
He doesn't try to force a certain viewpoint on us. He tries to let us form our own opinions on the subject that he's teaching, and he gives us the information to do that from a lot of different perspectives.
I always feel pushed in my class and challenged if I make a point or a claim. Dave always will ask me okay, well, why would you say that? Or what makes you believe that? And I have to justify my claims, and I think it pushes me to think about my ideas in new ways.
There are times when they're getting pushed into a somewhat uncomfortable realm, but a realm in which learning happens and in which they trust that I'm going to help them get to the other side where there's satisfaction, meaning, and growth.
I don't have to just say what things I wish I could do. Now it's time to actually do them.